If you happen to snap off one of the molded-in antennas while you're gluing, don't let it bother you. You can always replace it later once you're finished. Because of the unique nature of the aluminum finish that we're applying to the B-17, don't glue the tail planes and the wings onto the fuselage. We'll do that later. Transparent parts are very brittle, so remove them from the sprue tree carefully. Careful not to get fingerprints on the parts, too. I like to use a chemical glue or a special super glue that emits no fumes. Anything else will craze the canopy. Here's a real simple and quick technique for getting the scratches out of canopies. I just buff them on my pants leg. Polyester works really well too. We won't use the kit transparencies for these windows. I'll show you a technique later how to realistically simulate windows. We will disguise the seams by first applying putty, then sanding it smooth. Dimples can likewise be filled. Go easy with the putty and try to keep from smearing it on areas that don't need it. Be especially careful when applying putty around transparencies. I thin the putty with Tester's liquid plastic cement and paint the putty into the seams. Finally, check with your local hobby dealer for his brand of putty. When sanding the seams, work from heavy to fine grits. If you're wet sanding, don't let water get inside the model or it will fog the transparencies. I usually start sanding with a 220 grit and finish with a 400 grit. When you're finished, the putty should be glass smooth. A cautionary note here, you need to be very careful not to scratch any of the transparencies. For those of you who do not have rubber sanding pads, you can find these in Woodworker's Supply, which is a catalog outfit. Drill out any holes so that you can replace antennas on the fuselage. Use a scribe and a flexible straight edge to replace obliterated panel lines. A knife is unsuitable because it merely spreads the plastic apart instead of removing it. If you do not have a scribe, a sewing needle chucked in the pin vise will work as well. Go slow and easy to prevent stray scratches. Aircraft use a variety of lights for illumination and recognition. These round bulges represent formation lights, red, green, and amber. MV Products makes a range of colored lenses sold in railroad hobby shops. In lieu of these, you can make your own by turning clear plastic sprue in the Dremel tool and tinting the lenses with glass colorant, which can be purchased at a craft store. One bottle will last for years. Mask canopies using Scotch tape. Stay away from masking tape. It's much too thick. Cut carefully with an X-Acto knife and then remove the excess with tweezers. Small openings like these are best filled with white glue thinned with water with a couple of drops of clear liquid detergent. Prior to applying any finish on your model, give it a wipe with a little bit of enamel thinner just to remove surface oils from your hands. Then, just prior to painting, wipe it down with a tack rag. I learned this technique from fellow IPMS modeler Les Sunt. After about 3 hours, the varnish will be tacky to the touch, enough to capture a fingerprint, not enough to come away on your finger. The next step is to liberally rub aluminum powder onto the varnish. No buffing, just coat the varnish with powder, then set it aside till tomorrow. After the varnish dries completely, about 24 hours, use more aluminum dust to buff the panels out to a solid metallic sheen. And by the way, aluminum dust is highly flammable, so no open flames. After you've finished buffing the finish out to get the desired sheen, coat it one more time with varnish and let it dry for another 24 hours. This will protect it against further handling. Different panel effects can be achieved by laying down different types of aluminum foil. Additionally, you can paint clear decal film with other types of paint like Flocal Old Silver and put that down also to achieve a varied number of effects. I've used artists' prepared frisket to mask off the area for the pilot's anti-glare panel. Frisket is a low-tack adhesive mask that will not pull up the underlying paint. Its only drawback is its limited ability to adhere to curves. I'll shade the OD with flesh ochre to simulate weathering from the sun. Assemble the wing using tube glue and MEK. Once dry, apply a bead of white glue to hide the seam. When the white glue begins to set, ferret into the seam with your finger. Let it set for several hours, then apply metal foil to the seam. In order to fill in our windows, let's go ahead and cut away the aluminum and the liquid mask that we applied earlier. The same white glue mixture we used to mask off that hole, we will now use to make a window. Try to make it as thin as you possibly can. Let the window dry face down, and when it's completely dry, you'll have a crystal clear window. Now you remember at the beginning of the video when we talked about how to do some battle damage? Here's what it looks like. Well, this guy took a major hit. A little bit of dry brushing with silver highlighted the damage to the paint job. If you wanted to go a little bit further, you could add some damaged ribs to the inside of the fuselage. Painting Luftwaffe aircraft requires a certain degree of research. Color schemes varied widely from one model to another, so to stay on solid ground, we'll use the paint schemes and decals from the Ministry of Small Aircraft Production quarter-scale G10 sheet. This Canadian company has, in a very short time, established itself as a leader in the aftermarket decal industry. I hope you've enjoyed the modeling tips on World War II aircraft. It's been my pleasure to be your host. My name's Chuck Davenport, and we'll see you again on Video Workbench.